Hello, this is Mashit and Smash It, but you can call me Mash or Mash It for short. Well, folks, as 2017 winds to a close, I think it's a good time to reflect on the past year and look ahead to the future. Oh wait, what I meant to say was reflect on a holiday special from a year long past and look ahead to future reviews. Right. This is Rudolph's Shiny New Year. Released in 1976 by Rankin Bass Productions, this special was the follow-up to their hit 1964 TV special, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. For the few of you who are unfamiliar, here's a brief summary of the original Rudolph.
You know Dasher, and Dancer, and Prancer, and Vixen, Comet and Cupid, Donner and Blitzen. But do you recall the most famous reindeer of all?
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer!
He's got a shiny nose.
Shiny? I'd even say it glow.
Hey, buy us new! Hurry, Paws! Stop calling me names!
From now on, gang, we won't let Rudolph join in any reindeer games, right?
Right!
The storm won't subside by tonight. We'll have to cancel Christmas. Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight?
He'll be a hero after this. Yes, a hero.
That's my boy.
Well, folks, as for the rest of the story,
Oh yeah, and there's a snow monster, a crazy prospector, and an elf who likes looking in everyone's mouths. I guess the song forgot to mention them. And then there was the great question that has eluded many for years.
Why weren't you at elf practice?
While far from the greatest holiday special of all time, it is still a classic, and for good reason. It was the first animated work the studio released, and to this day is arguably their best. Sure, it has some major flaws, but it's easy enough to look past those flaws and appreciate the charm that has made it so beloved by people of all ages for many years. If I were reviewing it, I'd give it an 8 out of 10, albeit a relatively low 8. Snow White, it is not. But I'm not reviewing it, I'm reviewing the sequel, so here we go. The cartoon focuses on Rudolph as he is sent by Father Time, voiced by Red Skelton, to find the baby New Year, Happy, who has run away from home due to everyone laughing at his big ears. Happy escapes into the archipelago of last years, a group of islands that represent different past years in history that are ruled by what I guess are the previous years personified. It's kinda confusing, as several of these island rulers join Rudolph on his quest, as well as a giant whale with a clock on his tail named Big Ben. They must bring Happy home in time for the new year, while facing off with Eon the Terrible, a giant vulture whose lifespan will end with said new year, so therefore wants to stop it. If Happy doesn't make it home in time, then the old year will go on forever. So for starters, this story is all over the place. Is it imaginative? Totally. But it's also confusing and filled with plot holes. First of all, why doesn't Rudolph just fly? In the previous special, they made his flying capabilities pretty clear. Here, he never utilizes it once, even during quite a few moments where it would have been very useful, or hell, solve things pretty easily. All they needed to do was make up some lame excuse to keep him from doing it. It's Rankin Bass. They're not exactly known for deep or complex storytelling. I would have accepted it, assuming it wasn't too stupid. Also, the whole thing about how the lifespan of the baby New Year works is a little confusing. There's a musical number that shows one growing older as a year goes on, except by the end of the year, he is essentially aged in the Father Time. So does that mean that the Father Time being portrayed here was a baby New Year just a year ago? Will Happy become the new Father Time? It's not helped by Santa saying early on that Father Time is an old friend of his, suggesting that the one portrayed has been around for a while. And also, shouldn't the baby New Year actually be born as the New Year starts and not like a week before? Or is the idea that the baby New Year is born at the same time Jesus was born? Or maybe the idea is that the baby New Year is, why am I thinking so hard about a freaking Rankin Bass cartoon? While I can understand the inclusion of pretty much every scene in this special, a lot of them still feel out of place. It's like the cartoon lacks a proper focus, and as a result, you don't feel as invested in what's going on. The animation is standard Rankin Bass stop motion. Perfectly passable, but still choppy and limited in budget. You can definitely argue that it's a step up from the first Rudolph, though that's not saying much. That special may be their best, but they could only improve in the animation department as time goes on. The best part of the special is easily the world they build. From the desert known as the Sands of Time to all the islands in the archipelago of last years. It's the perfect world for a holiday fantasy adventure. Though this does raise another question. If all the past years retreat to their own separate islands, then why isn't there like billions of islands? There clearly only seem to be 7, 4 of which they just visit off screen.
1893, never heard of them. 1492 was too busy discovering things to even talk to us. 1965 was too noisy.
If you thought the 65 island was too noisy, Rudolph, then you're really not gonna like the island of 69. Oh wait, I guess that year doesn't exist in this world.
And all 4000 BC could think about was building pyramids.
Lots more islands, lots more, lots more,
But
lots more.
Anyway, the islands they do show are perfectly imaginative, if a little silly. We have an island that has the commonly portrayed anachronism of cave folk living alongside dinosaurs, an island representing the year where all those fairy tales actually happened, and an island where it's always the 4th of July. In 1776, when I think America was a little busy fighting the British to have fun little parades. But hey, I guess it gave Rankin Bass the opportunity to show off a musical sequence from their discontinued project for an Independence Day special. I guess this is about as good a transition as any into the music. Most of the songs are pretty generic Rankin Bass songs, especially the ones that are sung on the islands that are shown. There's one for each. Though I guess Have a Happy New Year and It's Raining Sunshine are sure to get stuck in some people's heads. They sure never left mine in the 20 plus years I've watched this special. I guess the weakest ones for me are Have a Little Faith in Me, not to be mistaken with the John Hyatt song, and What a Wonderful World We Live In. I guess not to be mistaken with the Louis Armstrong song. Neither of them are bad, they're just not very interesting. That said, there are a couple highlights in this category. The song Turn Back the Years is pretty enjoyable, and has some pretty thought-provoking lyrics. But for me, the best song written for this special, as well as my favorite part of the special period, is the song The Moving Finger Writes. It's a very powerful and well-written piece on the passage of time and how we can only move forward, never back. All throughout, we see the gradual, year-long aging of a baby New Year until by the end, he has become the elderly Father Time. Yes, I know I just ranted about how confusing this part is, but it's also quite brilliant to watch. As we watch this man getting older, each step in his aging process looks natural, with a carefully crafted character design for each one. The concept of how people look as they get older has always fascinated me, and this song does an excellent job at portraying that process. And of course, it ain't a Rudolph cartoon without the song he's become famous for. Now, it comes out of nowhere and kind of interrupts the story, but I guess it's worth it to see a nice little 2D retelling of the original Rudolph special. It's a nice little sequence. Though I will admit that Santa looks pretty weird here. He looks more like that old Irish drunk you see outside the tavern. And he looks even more so like that in the Rankin Bass version of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas when he apparently shaved off the stash. And now for the characters. Rudolph is the same humble protagonist you knew in the first one. Though it is weird that right after the events of the first one, he has reverted back to the small, short-antlered version who we saw for the first part of the special before he grew older for the end segment. What happened? Did he eat some age-regressing carrots after leading Santa's sleigh that fateful night? I mean, I get the logic a little, people identified with his younger self more, but still, this is pretty confusing. Nonetheless, he's still perfectly likable. And then we get a whole bunch of enjoyable side characters. None of them are particularly complex, and don't even really serve any purpose once they join Rudolph on his quest, but they all manage to be colorful in their own right. 1 million BC, aka OM, voiced by Maury Amsterdam, is a caveman who rules the pre-mentioned prehistoric island. He's mostly the comic relief, and is responsible for a lot of the more amusing wisecracks.
Comest thou with me, researchers? Clang, clang, clang.
Sir 1023, the ruler of the Fantasy Island, who's voiced by Frank Gorshin, known as the Riddler from the Adam West Batman series, is a little on the annoying side due to his constant shouting, but Gorshin hams it up enough to also make him pretty entertaining.
We must pursue them. Yes, we must after them to the ends of the earth till victory is ours. For each dawn we die, we must after them.
And then we have 1776, or should I say Ben Franklin. Yeah, you might as well call him Ben Franklin, though there already is a big Ben in the group, so whatever. Not a whole lot to this character either, but voice actor Paul Frees gives him plenty of charm on his own. For those of you who don't know, Paul Frees was a voice actor known for voicing characters like Boris Badenov and Ludwig von Drake, and was quite the regular for Rankin Bass. If you watch enough of their cartoons in a short amount of time, like I do when I watch the Christmas tapes that I brought up in my last video, you'll either appreciate the man's vocal talents or get really sick of him. Me, it's a little of both. I think Rankin Bass used him way more than they needed to, but there's still no denying he's one of the greats in the art of voice acting, up there with Mel Blanc. Frees also provided the voice for Santa Claus, General Ticker, and the villain, Eon. For Eon in particular, there's a pretty interesting performance. Frees makes some noises that are like a cross between squawking and psychotic laughter. And when he talks, he kind of sounds like an evil Barney the dinosaur.
Your last hope is gone, and you'll live here with me as my slave.
It's a weird performance, but I would be lying if I said I didn't enjoy it. Eon's backstory is also quite interesting, and gives him a unique motivation to stop Happy from returning home so that he can continue tormenting people. Though I will admit, the way he's stopped is quite the cop-out. They keep building up that he will die come the new year and turn into ice and snow. That doesn't sound very graphic or anything. Hell, they didn't even need to show it happen on screen. But it feels that they chickened out from going through with this actually happening and opted instead for the most cliched Rankin Bass method of stopping a villain. If you watched enough of their works, you know what it is. I guess I should also give credit to Red Skelton for his performance as Baby Bear. Since his father time role doesn't give him much opportunity to show off his talents as a comedian, he puts on a pretty adorable and entertaining performance with this other character. In fact, all three of the bears are pretty fun to watch. Now let's talk about Happy. Character-wise, there's not much to talk about, since he's mostly just a baby who hardly even talks. But I do have some observations. First of all, these baby New Years seem to be intelligent enough to form opinions.
His nurse, Nanny 9 o'clock, said that he always wanted to see the archipelago of last year's.
And apparently they're also smart enough to travel to these places they like on their own. But regardless of how smart Happy is, the question remains, how many diapers does he go through? I mean, even if he's smart enough to contain his bladder, sooner or later he's gotta poop, right? Does he just go behind a tree or something? And even if he does, surely he hasn't been wearing the same diaper for a week on end, right? But then again, where can he get them? We don't see him stop anywhere before he gets laughed off the respective island he's on. How does this work? It's Rankin Bass. It's Rankin Bass. And finally, let's talk about the message they seem to give this cartoon. Whenever Happy's hat comes off, people laugh at his ears, and he runs away dejected. But they keep hammering in that they didn't mean to be cruel, they just couldn't help themselves. Okay, I guess I can understand. But then we get the little speech Rudolph gives at the end.
Anna, don't get upset because I laughed. I couldn't help myself. Those years made me feel so wonderful that all the happiness inside me just had to pop out. Same way with everybody else. Those years of yours, why, they make folks happy.
So in other words, it's okay for people to laugh at your physical abnormality as long as it makes them happy? You know, I can see what you're going for, but that's a pretty botched moral. What if someone comes along and intentionally picks on him? Should he just let them do it just because it makes them happy? And even if nobody means any cruelty, isn't it just common courtesy to just stifle your laughter when you see someone with a weird feature like this? I know it can be hard, but you can't really blame them if their feelings get hurt. Besides, when is a physical feature so freaking funny that you just can't hold back your laughter? Stuff like this needs to be handled with a lot more care than just, I couldn't help it. So what if it makes other people happy? If it makes you unhappy, then it's just not worth it. That said, Happy seems accepting enough of owning up to how silly he looks, so I guess it's not all bad. I just feel that the message can leave some unfortunate implications for some people. But for all this special's issues, it's still perfectly passable. It's definitely not as good as its predecessor. There are quite a few scenes that felt pointless, and despite the unique world, the adventure doesn't feel all that rewarding. But there are still enough things to like about it that it's still worth checking out, especially if you're a big enough fan of Rudolph's previous adventure. Despite its flaws, I still like popping this one in every holiday season, though it's usually an afterthought from watching the first one. In the end, a bit of a mixed bag. I give Rudolph's Shiny New Year a 6 out of 10. And so ends my reviews for the year of 2017. It's been an interesting year, full of twists and turns. Oh no, not for the series, I mean in real life. It's been pretty standard for my series so far. Aside from a certain kitty stealing my idea anyway. As we transition into the next year, I guess now is a good time to reflect on the past year. As we transition into the next year, I guess now is a good time to reflect on the past year. Whoops, I reflected all the way to present time. And with that, here's looking ahead to the future. What? I never said I wasn't going to do what I said at the beginning of the video. And here's to what will hopefully be a better year. I know 2017 was rough for many people, from the politics to the scandals to all the issues happening on this very website. But I think at this point, it can only get better. Right? Well, anyway, I'll see all of you in 2018. I have another certain animated work starring a young member of the Cervidae family ready to be reviewed. Until then, this is Mashit and Smash It, signing off. Have a happy new year, everybody.